The most powerful moment in your life will not be the loudest one. It will be the quiet one. The moment you stop chasing, stop begging, stop explaining, the moment you finally look at her, or him, with calm eyes, and nothing comes out of your mouth. Not anger, not love, not disappointment, just silence. Because in that silence is the truth most people never reach, that the only thing you ever truly control is yourself. I want you to think about this. How many wars have you fought in your mind over words that were never said, over people who never deserved the space they occupied in your soul? The Stoics understood this long before modern heartbreak existed. Marcus Aurelius said that your mind will take the shape of what you hold inside it. And yet, most men and women fill their minds with the one thing that destroys peace faster than anything else: emotional dependency. You see it everywhere now, relationships that begin like fireworks and end like ashes, passion without discipline, attachment without self-respect, desire without control. Stoicism is trending right now in the U.S., but let's be real, most people talk about it like a quote on a screen. Few leave it when the heart shakes, and almost nobody leaves it when the desire burns. Because controlling sorrow is one challenge, controlling pleasure is a different battlefield. Seneca warned that indulgence is where the weak think they are strong, especially when intimacy enters the story. When two souls meet, male and female, there is more than emotion at play. There is chemistry, instinct, a pull older than reason. And society teaches us to surrender to it fully, instantly. If it feels right, do it. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic asks, at what cost? Let's talk about the truth that nobody says out loud. Love is not innocent, not gentle by nature. It is dangerous, it is wild, it can make a king kneel, it can make an empire crumble, it can make a strong man text paragraphs at 2 a.m. and feel pathetic the next morning. The suspense in relationships isn't the mystery of whether someone loves you, it's whether you can love without losing yourself, whether you can desire without becoming a slave to your own impulses, whether you can be intimate without being destroyed when the moment ends. Most people think silence means defeat. They think not reacting means you don't care. They think walking away quietly means you lost. But silence is power when everyone else is noisy. That was the core of Stoic relationships. Never give someone the key to your peace. Not even in love. Not even in lust, not even when the moment is heavy with intimacy and warmth and breath and closeness. Because once the body cools, once the room gets quiet, once real life begins again, the question is, who still owns your mind? This is where the modern world fails. It teaches connection without boundaries. It teaches men and women to merge identities like it's romantic. But identity merger is self-burial. A Stoic relationship is not cold, it is not distant, it is simply governed by sovereignty, two independent people, choosing each other without needing each other to breathe. Let me take you into a moment. Picture this: a man and a woman sitting close, eyes locked, tension hanging like a thin string ready to snap. Not the anxious tension of insecurity, but the charged tension of attraction. The kind of moment where words would usually spill, where hands would rush before the soul even consents, where desire would drive instinctively to a conclusion. The world calls that romance. Stoicism calls that unconscious reaction. The Stoic pauses even there, feels fully, but waits, not out of fear, out of mastery, because a man who commands his own desire is more magnetic than a man who surrenders to it. A woman who owns herself is more unforgettable than one who scrambles for validation. We live in a culture obsessed with intimacy, sex, connection, closeness, vulnerability, true. And there is nothing wrong with intimacy itself or physical connection. But the danger is not the act, it is the surrender of inner command. You can touch someone without being touched internally. You can be close to someone physically while your mind remains anchored. That is not emotional avoidance. That is emotional discipline. That is Stoic intimacy. The key to attraction is not intensity. It is control wrapped inside intensity. The key to relationships is not giving more. It is needing less. The key to heartbreak recovery is not opening your mouth. It is closing it. Most people chase relationships for the feeling of being chosen. The Stoic enters relationships already chosen by himself or herself. And that difference changes everything. The modern man says, I hope she will stay. The Stoic man says, I do not need her to stay for me to stand. The modern woman says, I hope he will see my worth. The Stoic woman says, I carry my worth without needing him to confirm it. When heartbreak strikes, and it will strike almost everyone, the average person collapses into explanation, arguments, proof of loyalty, begging for closure. The Stoic collapses into reflection and then rises into silence, because closure is not earned from others. It is declared internally. You want suspense. The Stoic life is suspense, not because it is uncertain, but because it is unpredictable to the outside world. You cannot manipulate someone who is not begging. You cannot break someone who does not panic. You cannot control a heart that owns its own rhythm. If you want to be unforgettable in relationships, learn the skill everyone fears: disappearing without drama, loving without desperation, speaking only when necessary, remaining unbothered when emotions demand reaction, passionate without self-betrayal. People respect intensity, but they admire restraint. That is why Stoicism is exploding on platforms now, especially for U.S. audiences, because modern life is screaming for calm strength. Everyone is tired of emotional chaos. They want the man who doesn't crumble when love turns uncertain. They want the woman who doesn't beg when affection gets quiet. Silence has become the language of legends because words have lost value. When everyone communicates endlessly, the quiet person becomes fascinating. Mystery is not a strategy, it is a byproduct of self-containment. Let's return to physical desire for a moment. Everybody talks about sex. Everybody displays desire instantly. But the man who waits, who feels but doesn't lunge, carries a gravitational pull different from anyone else. Not because he deprives himself, but because the desire is filtered through awareness. And awareness intensifies presence instead of dispersing it. Desire under command becomes charisma. Desire without command becomes thirst. The Stoic philosophy of relationships isn't avoidance, denial, or repression. It is the understanding that the heart is a powerful animal, and like any powerful animal, it must be tamed not by violence, but by training. And do not think women do not feel this too. A Stoic woman doesn't rush into emotional confession the moment her heart quivers. She feels it, honors it, but she never reacts to it blindly. She doesn't weaponize silence manipulatively. She wields it naturally, because she isn't exploding at every emotional spark. Stoicism teaches that freedom is the highest form of love. You can only love someone genuinely when your peace does not depend on their response. That means you can also desire someone without becoming weak when the night ends and the reality resumes. The world today demands reaction. Stoicism today demands awareness. That contrast is where virality begins, because it awakens a hunger for calm power the world rarely models. If you are in love, the Stoic way is simple. Commit deeply but silently. Show, don't explain. Act, don't overpromise. Love without chains. Choose without fear. Stay without losing selfhood. Leave without hate. And if the relationship ends. The Stoic doesn't announce departure. He or she simply leaves the table quietly, refusing to feed the drama narrative, because the moment you stop defending your heart, you begin protecting it properly. Let's get even deeper. Most relationships fail not because love vanishes, but because ego flares. Two people think they are fighting each other, when really they are fighting their own untrained minds. The Stoic trains the mind first, and only then enters connection. You want emotional depth without competition. It lies in speaking about love realistically, intimately, passionately, but from a grounded consciousness instead of emotional panic. That is the pocket on YouTube that millions search but few genuinely deliver, because most speakers fall into anger or desperation. Anger is not Stoicism. Coldness is not Stoicism. Silence used for revenge is not Stoicism. Stoic silence is simply the refusal to surrender internal command. There is a moment in every relationship that defines the power dynamic. The first moment someone withdraws affection slightly. That moment tempts reaction. The Stoic passes the test silently, not to punish but to remain sovereign. Modern culture worships vulnerability. Stoicism worships strength that feels vulnerability without drowning in it. When desire, intimacy, or heartbreak enter the equation, the Stoic never forgets the anchor rule. The soul must not leak its command center. Self-mastery is not just emotional regulation. It is identity preservation. No matter how intense the connection, no matter how hot the chemistry, you never mentally transfer ownership to another person. That is how you stay strong even in love. The Stoic doesn't narrate self-worth. He or she embodies it. Doesn't narrate heartbreak, absorbs it. Doesn't narrate jealousy, kills it internally. If you want to speak Stoicism into relationships and virality, you speak it the way it really is. Emotional stillness wrapped around passionate presence, masculine and feminine, attraction acknowledged, intimacy respected but never worshipped, love carried without desperation, silence honored without cruelty. You foster suspense by pacing awareness, not by breaking flow. Real suspense isn't the breakup moment. It's the moment you resist reacting unconsciously, when everything in your biology demands reaction. That is internal suspense. That is the suspense of mastery. Let me tell you something even stronger. The Stoic is not independent because he hates connection. The Stoic is independent, so connection never destroys him. He knows love is powerful enough to make a person unstable, so he trains stability before love can corrupt it. And that stability becomes seductive without being spoken. Now I want to speak to every man listening. You were not born to crave like a beggar. You were not born to panic when love trembles. You were born to choose with steady eyes. If a woman loves you, you appreciate it, but you do not let it destabilize your identity. If she leaves, you do not implore explanation. You do not collapse into endless texts. You look at life quietly and say, I remain. And that remaining is not emotional defeat, it is identity triumph. To every woman listening, Stoicism is not masculine by default. Strength is not male property. The calmest heart in a relationship is the most powerful one. If you constantly communicate exhaustion, affection, validation, hunger, or insecurity, you surrender power. Not because you expressed emotion, but because you expressed emotion without command. The Stoic woman carries emotion without needing to spill it to prove existence. She speaks, yes, but not blindly. She connects, yes, but not slavishly. She loves, yes, but not desperately. Stoic relationships are not the absence of passion. They are the presence of passion under conscious ownership. Passion that is not owned is chaos. Passion that is owned is art. Modern relationships fluctuate fast. You must not fluctuate with them. The world wants intensity. Give intensity, but give it with command. Not thirst, not begging, not internal collapse, just presence, hot presence, silent presence, controlled presence. That was the core of Stoic romantic dynamics. You see, the most attractive soul is one you cannot read because it is leaking every thought, but one you feel because it is fully present without being desperately expressive. Let's talk sexuality realistically, honestly, because you asked for some touch points without pornography. The world thinks sex is where you lose control romantically. The Stoic treats sex like every other strong force, something to engage in consciously, fully, but never blindly. The danger is not the connection of bodies, it is the surrender of internal command. You can share warmth without forfeiting sovereignty. You can share desire without forfeiting dignity. That is Stoic intimacy. Mystery is not silence. Mystery is identity that does not leak its operating system to another human. The Stoic knows heartbreak is a test, attraction is a test, intimacy is a test, silence is training. Self-worth is oxygen, and identity is territory that must never be conquered. And that is why the Stoic life is trending, exploding, spreading through low competition emotional depth niches in the U.S. Because everybody is tired of emotional chaos, attachment slavery, validation hunger, identity burial, relationship begging, reaction addiction. Stoicism offers deliverance. But the deliverance begins at the hardest moment when your heart or your desire insists you react and you don't. That silence becomes identity armor. That armor then becomes magnetism. That magnetism then becomes legend. So when you love, love calmly. When you desire, desire consciously. When affection gets quiet, remain unmoved internally. When heartbreak strikes, close your mouth. And when life gets loud, remember the anchor risen by Stoic minds thousands of years ago, that the only empire you must rule is the one inside your ribcage. Because once you master that empire, you can love without dying, connect without collapsing, desire without begging, leave without hatred, remain without humiliation, and live without needing the world to narrate your internal worth, because your internal worth no longer begs for narration.